I want to invite you to join in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Madam Chair, could I ask this body that the meditative thought this afternoon be in memory of Mr. Bradley McLeod and Mr. Brian Jefferson and the entire Lakewood High School family?
Yes, thank you. Moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is held in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The news media has been notified, and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. This meeting is open to the public, but with limited first come, first served seating due to COVID-19. All persons wishing to attend the meeting by virtual means may do so via YouTube Sumter School District Board meetings and Sumter School District Facebook page. Vision. Sumter School District is committed to educating, empowering, and enriching the lives of all students to reach their full potential. Mission. Sumter School District is committed to providing a safe, nurturing, and high quality educational environment that supports diversity and equips students for local and global success. The members of the board are yours truly, Barbara Jackson, Area 7 Chairwoman, Dr. J. Frank Baker, Seat 8, Vice Chair, Dr. Darrell McGaney, Area 5, Clerk, Mr. Brian Alston, Area 1, Mrs. Cheryl Ray, and she's joining us via the, on camera this afternoon, and she represents Area 2. Mr. Matthew McLeod, Area 3, and he should be arriving soon. Dr. John B. Hilton, Area 4. Dr. Gloria Lee, Area 6. Dr. Sean Reagan, Seat 9. And Ms. Robin Mills, Deputy Director of Installation Support, Shore Air Force Base Representative. She may be arriving a little later. Dr. Penelope E. Martin Knox is our superintendent, and Ms. Amy Hanson is our administrative manager. This meeting is called to order. Welcome to the Sumter School District January 24th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting. It is our pleasure to have you join us this evening, and we are grateful for your continued support. Board members, before we approve tonight's agenda, we are in need of receiving legal advice from legal counsel concerning a matter that has come up. So, may I have a motion to add to the executive session agenda at item 5, an additional item 5.2 for receipt of legal advice related to a potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client relationship.
Madam Chair, I move that we amend tonight's executive session agenda to add to the executive session an additional item 5.2 for receipt of legal advice related to a potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client relationship.
A motion has been made and second to add to the executive session agenda at item 5, an additional item 5.2 for receipt of legal advice related to a potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client relationship.
Can we do that as a show of hands, please?
Okay, would you please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion?
How many was that?
2, 4, 5 here, and I don't know,
Ms. Ray?
this Ray's got hers up, that's 6.
That passes.
Okay. With 6 votes, the agenda has been amended. Are there any objection to the approval of the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. We are now down to the Board Appreciation Month and signing of the ethical principles. The ethical principles are provided by the South Carolina School Board Association, and they were read at our last meeting. And since they've already been read, I'd just like to invite you to sign the poster depicting these principles. Dr. Baker, would you pass it that way, and would you please sign as it's coming around? Just remember that this is an excellent way to show that we are upholding these effective principles and that we plan to continue working hard for the students and our community.
She might be mad with me.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to thank each of you for your signature as a member of the board of Sumter School District 2, the signing of the ethical principles. Thank you one and all for your signature. Okay, that being said, we are now down to board communication, and well, Ms. Mills is Robin Mills, like I said earlier, is our board representative from Shaw. And I'd just like to acknowledge her, although she is not here, because this is the last meeting that she will be with us. She has been a valuable asset to the organization, and while we are sad to see her leave, we do know that she has a new assignment, and we do wish her well. So we're going to go through the motion as if we present it to her, so that then we can in turn get it to her. So Ms. Mills, Dr. Penelope, would you accept this for her, Dr. Baby, you want to help with it? So, Ms. Mills, on behalf of the board, we would like to present this to you. What we're doing is presenting a name tag plate that was made by our Career Center students. And also the Palmetto has her name on it. And then also the big plaque that emulates the same thing over there. So we're just happy to present this to Ms. Mills on behalf of the board. And we would like to say too, that if she's ever in Sumter, to please make sure that she comes by and grace us with her presence, because she will truly be missed. So in her absence, we will get this to her, because this was her last meeting, and we just wanted to make sure that we did recognize her this evening. So let's give a Okay. So we are now down to the announcements. Trustees, are there any announcements?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yes, I would just like to recognize our own superintendent of Sumter School District, Dr. Penelope Martin Knox, who was honored this weekend with the Hamilton Prelo Award, Service to Education Award, for her upstanding character, unmatched integrity, and superior leadership in elevating Sumter School District. So I just want to say kudos to Dr. Martin Knox for a job well done and an award that was definitely earned and not just given.
Thank you. And I would like to thank Kingsbury for giving each board member one of these plaques. I think you will find them at your seat. This comes from Kingsbury. And this was done and presented to us by them. So please, if you get the opportunity, please say thank you to Kingsbury Elementary. So let's give them a hand. Do we have any other announcements? Okay, hearing none. Dr. Hilton, do you have any information to report?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks to the South Carolina School Boards Association, we have our legislative update. You have a copy printed out at your seat. A particular note is in the Senate Education Subcommittee is a voucher bill. It's public school funding for private education. There's a description of it down on the second page, I think it is. And you'll want to pay special note on the back page there. It tells all about this bill, and it's going to be. There's a lot of money that could leave public education and go to private schools. And we've been encouraged to speak to the members on the subcommittee in our opposition to this voucher bill to transfer money from public schools to private schools. That's the most important one. All of them are important, but that one is very important. And I'll leave the rest for you to read and study at your leisure. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Dr. Hilton, for the legislative update. And I do encourage you to look at the document and be familiar with what is included there, because it does impact our educational system. Okay, we're down now to 3.5, committee reports. I want to take this opportunity to remind you that the Citizen Advisory Committee will meet on February 10th, and the location is to be determined. That's the Citizen Advisory Committee, February 10th. Okay, Dr. Reagans, do you have an update or anything for the Facilities Committee?
No, ma'am, no report tonight, thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Ray, do you have anything for the Finance Committee? Unmute your phone, Ms. Ray.
No, but Ms. Hanson and I will be getting together to try to schedule a meeting before the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Olson, Policy Committee, do you have a report?
Yes, ma'am. The policy committee met on January 20th and reviewed policy ADF. The board or the district will review this at least once every 3 years. The district will evaluate compliance with the wellness policy to assess the implementation of the policy and include the extent to which schools under the jurisdiction of the district are in compliance with the wellness policy, the extent to which the district's wellness policy compares to the Alliance for a Healthier Generations model wellness policy, and a description of the progress made in obtaining the goals of the district's wellness policy. This afternoon, this policy is recommended by the committee for first reading consideration by the Board of Trustees. And I just wanted to reiterate, as I did at the policy meeting, Sumter School District has one of the most comprehensive and thorough wellness policies compared to our neighboring districts. So I just want to give kudos to Ms. Stacy Francis and the committee that worked on this policy and reviewing it and updating it. I think that's something for us to be proud of, that we have one of the most thorough and most comprehensive policies in the area. In addition, the policy committee will continue review of policy ACB, educational equity, and policy ACA and ACA-R equity, policy KLGA, school resource officers, policy KLG, relations with law enforcement authorities, discussion or update on the Open Carry with Training Act. The policy committee will begin the review of the following policies at a future meeting: policy GCC, professional staff leaves and absences, and policy GDC, support staff leaves and absences, policy GCG, part-time and substitute professional staff employment, and the attendance policy. That concludes the policy committee report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alston. Thank you very much. We're down now to Dr. Baker, the Transportation Study Ad Hoc Committee recommendation.
No, ma'am, we do not have a report at this time, but we will be getting an update from Mr. Cropper tonight.
Okay, that being said, thank you, Dr. Baker, and that being said, Mr. Cropper, is Mr. Cropper with us?
I am. Hello.
Okay, just one moment. I'd like to welcome Mr. Cropper and thank you for being with us tonight. And you may proceed at this time with providing an update to the board on the realignment progress.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson, members of the board, Dr. Martin Knox. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update here tonight. I don't have too much to report other than just a progress on our status. We are planning to meet this Thursday with the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee. Last meeting, we shared 2 new options with the committee, and we are not bringing any further new options to the committee this Thursday. We have examined some things, and we're going to discuss some of our exploration of trying to develop and modify options. And then the ultimate objective of this Thursday's meeting is to bring the narrow down from 4 options to 2 to take to the public in February. And so, and that's all I really have for this evening.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Cropper. We do appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing and hearing from you on Thursday.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Cropper? Okay, hearing no questions, we will see you on Thursday, Mr. Cropper. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're now down to 3.7, the SCSBA Superintendent Search presentation coming from SCSBA. Board of Trustees will now welcome SCSBA President, Mr. Scott Price, and he will introduce the young lady that's accompanying him to make a presentation regarding the superintendent search. Thank you for being here with us, Mr. Price.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Judy LeGrand, Executive Assistant, and she's also the search coordinator for the School Board Association. And she is handing out a copy of the proposal. And I'll go ahead and get started, if it's okay with you, while she's doing that. And Madam Chairman, if I'm sitting in this little cubicle, may I take my mask off so that everybody can hear me okay?
He just asked me if he could take his mask off since he's sitting in the cubicle.
Yes, I'm sorry, of course.
Madam Chair and members of the Sumter Board, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you to discuss your superintendent search and how SCSBA can assist. My name is Scott Price, and I'm the Executive Director for the South Carolina School Boards Association. The primary team for this search will be Dr. Gene Moore, who's a retired superintendent for Lancaster County, who's been consulting with us for several years on searches. And Judy Grand, as I mentioned previously, is our superintendent search coordinator, and myself. Dr. Moore is not able to be with us this evening, but he will be fairly involved in this process. It is our honor and pleasure to assist you, the board, in selecting the person to be the best match for your students, district, employees, community, and you. The selection of a superintendent to oversee the district is perhaps one of the most important decisions that you can make as a school board. I want to give you a brief overview of the process, but I want to remind you now and throughout this process that this is your search. This is your board search. We will work with you and tailor this process to meet your needs, but in short, you control the search process. Basically, a timeline of a typical search is about a 3 to 6 month process. And if you'll look at, in this document in front of you, the proposal, if you'll look at page 6, that basically is a proposed schedule for this search process. And again, we'll work with you to reach a timeline that fits your specific needs as a board. In establishing priorities, we will work with you, the board, to determine qualities that you would like to see in a new superintendent. Sometimes this involves use of surveys, electronic surveys with the community. It may involve focus groups, which is something that if you all are interested in doing focus groups, we can certainly conduct those for you. Advertising, the position will be advertised in-state as well as regionally and nationally. We do recruit candidates for this position, and please know that throughout this process, we must be able to maintain confidentiality of candidates until we get to the point where we have finalists that we're announcing. And we'll, again, that's one of those things, just as a reminder, we'll bring that up very often through the process. We will conduct preliminary interviews and screening of applicants to assist you in the selection of semifinalists during the process. We'll help you set up an interview structure, including scheduling for semifinalists and finalists. And the structure would also include sample questions and procedures for interviews that we'll make available to you. And also, towards the end of it, we do have sample contracts that are available, and certainly can work with the attorney that you all use for the board or district in terms of contract development. But mostly, we leave that to you all with the ability to help if we need to. If you'll look on page 7, our basic fee, Madam Chair, for the search service is $15,000. We do ask for $7,500, which is half of the base fee when the search is launched, depending on when you all want to get it started. But we also add an additional estimated $3,000 to $5,000 in administrative expenses to cover any additional costs or expenses in relation to that. Again, we very much appreciate the opportunity to work with you all on this very critical process. I think Judy's going to talk to you a little bit about the timeline that I mentioned to you on page 6. And with that, Judy, you want to go ahead and
Sure.
do you want to take questions or?
Sure, either one. Does anybody have any questions, just from the overview? All right, the proposed schedule that we listed on page 6, we have it starting tomorrow. Now, if we can be ready to start tomorrow if that's something you want to do, or if we need to make that 1 or 2 weeks later, we'll just adjust all the other dates. When the search opens, we would begin advertising and recruiting. We would also launch an electronic survey if that's something that the board wants to make available. That link would be made available to staff, teachers, principals, the community, parents, for them to rank characteristics and qualities of what you should look for in the next superintendent. Along with that online survey, many districts use focus groups. And I know that in years past, when we helped you with the search, we helped with or conducted those focus groups. We would have focus groups with district office staff, principals, assistant principals, teacher representatives, and then we would also offer focus groups for the community. And probably the best way to reach a larger section, cross-section of your community would be to maybe offer 3 focus groups, maybe at Sumter High, Lakewood, Crestwood, or any other locations, just to make sure we get all areas of the community. I would compile that information from the survey and the focus groups, and that information would be presented to you as a board, and we would use that information to help you narrow down the specific qualifications and characteristics that you would want to look for as we're going through the candidate pool. And with the outline or the proposed dates, I just listed semi-finalist interviews towards the end of March, and then finalist interviews towards the end of April. I know you've got your spring break. I think I saw on your website that it's that week of April 11 through the 14 during that week, so I wanted to try to avoid that. But interviews at the semi-finalist level, just want to remind everyone, those names still remain confidential. Those names are not made public. Interviews are done in executive session. Then after the finalists are named, those names go public. And that's something we can discuss with the board if you want to do, have each finalist in the district for a day to meet with different groups, as long as COVID will allow us to do that. And then maybe a community reception so that your community members can meet your finalists. And that's just, kind of an overview. Hopefully by the 1st of May, we could announce the superintendent. So, but that's just a rough idea of, the process.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Dr. McGain?
Yes, thank you for the presentation, Judy.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, Will and Scott, you can answer this too. Thank you for the presentation as well. The top 3 candidates, will the top 3 candidates come to the board at any given time in this timeline? And I'm just asking the question because in the past, the top 3, if you have 15, then you'll narrow it down to like maybe the top 3 candidates. So is that in the plan, or you're just gonna narrow it down to a finalist?
No, the plan would be, Reverend McGaney, that we bring to you semifinalists, and that could be 9 people, it could be 12 people. But you all may look at the 9, and you're gonna have access to all of the candidates, the list of all the candidates. So you may look at those 9, let's just say for example, and you may say, well, why didn't you put so-and-so on there? So it's gonna be your list. We'll make recommendations, but you can change that however you want to. and then you all go through an interview process with the semifinalists. From that interview process, you're going to come up with not fewer than 3 final candidates. So you don't go from the semifinalist to 1, you go from the semifinalist to not fewer than 3. You may have more than that, but the Freedom of Information Act requires that you have not fewer than 3.
Follow up.
Yes.
Thank you for that response, both of you. So I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, that this board would have an opportunity to look over information of the candidates and ask questions as we move right along.
You all will have access to the entire pool, information relating to the entire pool of candidates. And in some instances in searches we've done, we basically bring that information in and walk you through them. Some boards have asked us to set up a Dropbox to put that information in. But again, I'll remind you that when we're still in the semifinalist stage, that's confidential.
Yes, sir.
And that quite honestly allows us to bring to you candidates because they know that we're going to keep their names confidential until such time as you as a board announce who your finalists are. And at that point, the people that you've announced, that you've listed as finalists, that becomes available to the public for public examination.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Before I go, again. Okay, I saw another hand, Dr. Reagan.
Yes, ma'am. I just have a question for clarification.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can answer it or any member of the board can. This is a proposal, correct, before us? Was this the only search firm that was allowed to submit a proposal before us?
This is the one that was asked at the last board meeting. So now, if there are going to be others, that's a board decision. Yes, Dr. Rubin? I think that you want to respond to that?
Well,
Okay.
there was a motion made at our last meeting to hire the School Boards Association to conduct a search, and that motion passed. That's why they're here.
Okay, was there a procurement process or anything that had to take place before we decide to hear a proposal?
It's exempt from the procurement.
It's exempt from,
The way that the motion was done, it exempts you from the proposal.
Procurement.
Procurement process.
Okay.
Okay.
I have 3 comments. The first one is a follow-up to the question I was just asked, because it has been this board's practice to go through the procurement process. There are other activities of this board that are exempt as well, as far as, one example of that will be the board attorney that we select. It's also exempt, but in that process, we put an RFP out for it, and we accept proposals. In this situation, the board went to a motion to select a firm before we even had any discussion on other firms that potentially we could use for the superintendent search. My other comment is, how does this body go with the same firm that we had an issue with? And I say we, even though it was prior to my arrival on the board, how do we go with the same firm? And this has nothing to do with Scott or Judy. How do we go with the same firm that we had an issue with a previous selected superintendent? My last statement is, I heard the timeline, and the timeline is very aggressive. But members of this board had an issue with the aggressiveness of a realignment study that was started almost a year ago. But we're starting a superintendent search and expect to name a finalist within
3 months.
3 months. Where's the community input gonna come in 3 months? When we did this process 3 years ago, it was almost a year-long process. But we're talking about starting a search potentially tomorrow and naming a finalist before graduation? So I need some clarification from our colleagues on the board. One, how do we go with the same firm that we had an issue with the previous superintendent with? Two, how do we exempt this, but we have always done the procurement process with any other services that we have utilized as far as legal services or anything else, it's always going through the procurement process. So now we're, as a body, so now we're picking and choosing which procurement items that we're going to exempt and which ones we're actually gonna procure out. And thirdly, how can you be upset with the aggressiveness of realignment, but not upset with the aggressiveness of superintendent search? Thank you.
Okay, some questions, have been asked. Does anyone want to respond to those questions? Ms. Olson again?
Since no one else wants to respond, that was just for public consumption, but I also have a concern with how neutral is the search going to be when you have all of these connections to Sumter. If we want to actually find the best fit for Sumter, then I think that it needs to be a neutral party, and that those that will be a part of the search should not have any connections to Sumter.
Okay. I myself don't have all of these answers that you've asked, or the questions that you've asked. Again, does anyone want to address any of the questions that have been asked about it? I think Sean asked some and Brian asked several. Okay, well, we do have some questions here, and I'd just like to, go on and thank Scott and Judy, Ms. LeGrand, for the presentation, and, we will get back in touch with you, concerning the proposal that you shared with us this evening. Thank you so much for being here with us this evening, and we do appreciate your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact me.
Okay, we will. Thank you, sir. Y'all have a pleasant evening and safe travel.
Thank y'all for coming
Thank
over.
you.
Thanks for having us. Good thing.
Oh. Okay. We will need to, get responses to those questions that have been asked and discuss those things further of concern. Because I myself cannot answer those at this point, and no one else attempted to provide input. So we will follow up on those questions with further discussion. Thank you. Thanks to all of you that provided input. We're now down to 3.8, and that's in reference to the position of Shaw Air Force Base representative to the Board of Trustees. And trustees, once again, while we are happy for Mrs. Mills' new assignment, and we are sad to see her leave her position as our military representative to the board. As information to you and in moving forward, I have requested a meeting with the Shore Air Force Base Commander in order that the offices of the board can have dialogue with the base commander regarding the position and appointment of a representative. A meeting has been scheduled for January 31st at 4 o'clock. Trustees have received previous letters regarding the position, and I want to ask that you please review the information, specifically the document that was composed upon consolidation of the two school districts. And upon your review, please email or call Amy with any comments or input that you might have. That meeting will be with the base commander regarding the position and appointment of a representative on January 31st at 4 o'clock. Are there any questions? Yes, Dr. Hill.
Yes, ma'am. And I have 3 letters here, but I don't have the information you alluded to regarding when the position was created.
When it was created,
You said when the position was created upon the consolidation of the school districts, isn't that what you said?
yeah, wasn't that in 20, now you mean the original creation of it?
Well, I have 3 letters here
Mm-hmm.
And it's the second one.
congratulating the people that were chosen to serve, but I don't have any information that you just alluded to about the criteria or the whatever.
Okay, Amy, do
The first letter is from Sumter School District 17. It just explains the position of Sumter.
So I have all I need here?
Yes.
There's no additional
No,
document?
sir.
Okay, all right, I apologize.
okay.
I thought you were alluding to some document I didn't have. It sounded
Oh,
like a more in-depth description of the position.
oh no, it's just those letters
Okay,
that
thank
you
you.
have that set out, established the
Yes.
committee and then the consolidation of the two school districts.
And you want input from us before your meeting, is that what you're saying?
If at all possible, yes.
And what, that's January 31st?
January 31st.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other input on that? If not, we're down now to full point. The superintendent report, and the next item on the agenda, the superintendent will proceed with the items listed under this section.
So good afternoon, Madam Chairman, Dr. Jackson, Vice Chairman Dr. Baker, members of the Sumter School District Board, and members of the Sumter School District community. At this time, I'll be presenting the superintendent's report, beginning with items 4.1, 4.2, 4.3 from the Office of Finance. And Ms. Miller, if you would go ahead and begin the presentation for general fund revenue and expenditures through December the 31st, and proceed through 4.3 without interruption. I won't introduce the items as you begin.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Chairwoman Dr. Barbara Jackson, Vice Chairman Dr. Frank Baker, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Martin Knox. This evening, I have the December 31st, 2021 revenue and expenditures for the general fund. There was a slight increase in the projected revenue related to revenue code 1-999, revenue from other local sources. This relates mostly to the rebate we earn from making electronic accounts payable payments. The total projected revenue at this point is $127,366,005. Moving down to expenditures, we are continuing to evaluate salaries and benefits as it is 90% of the expenditures. At this time, based on current staffing levels, We have decreased the overall projected expenditures by approximately $390,000. We will continue to review the projection as we progress through the remainder of the fiscal year. These amounts will fluctuate based on staffing and any additional pay. Based on the previous information, total expenditures are projected to be $129,779,188, which will result in a break-even position for the fiscal year. Before I move on to item 4.2, are there any questions related to the general fund activity?
If I may.
Yes, Dr. Hilton?
So you said expenditures were gonna be down 300,000, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
And what do we attribute that to?
That change is in the salaries and benefits, and as we move through the year, just trying to project that amount based on staffing levels, when employees are hired, what vacancies we have, that is where that variance is coming in.
So it could be attributed to more vacancies.
It is offset by the additional pay that we are having to pay because of the vacancies, the higher fees that we have related to outsourcing some of those positions. So it's just offsetting. It's not necessarily that there's more vacancies or less vacancies. It's just a combination of where the expenditures are.
But we're spending $300,000 less.
Yes, sir, that is what I'm projecting at this point, but those amounts will fluctuate as we continue through the year.
About how many teacher vacancies do we have at this time?
I don't have an exact number for you because we just did some hiring. We just had recent graduates come in, and that number fluctuates on a day-to-day basis based on retirements, resignations, and then the hiring. So they kind of offset one another, but I can definitely get you the number and provide it in my superintendent's briefing this week.
70, 60, 80?
I don't have a specific number at this time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You gotta know how to get it.
Thank you, Dr. Hilton. All right. Any other questions for Ms. Mills at this point? If not, Ms. Mills, you may proceed.
All right, moving on to our capital projects. You have funds 519 through 527 in front of you. And if you have any questions on those projects, I will be happy to take those at this time.
Any questions?
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 4.3. And this is the Minority Business Enterprise Utilization Plan Semi-Annual Update. Please note that this information is audited on an annual basis as part of the procurement audit. Before we go into any details, on slide 2, you have a recap about certified minority businesses. Small or minority businesses must be certified with the South Carolina Division of Small and Minority Business Contracting and Certification, also known as SMBCC. There are approximately 750 South Carolina certified minority businesses registered as of December 2021. It was noted that this has increased by 50 from the previous year. Sumter School District encourages all minority businesses to obtain their certification with the state. The Sumter School District vendor application has a section to indicate if a vendor is a minority business and if they are in fact certified. And then lastly, semi-annually, we compare our vendor listing with the SMBCC listing of certified businesses to ensure we have all the certified minority businesses properly flagged in our accounting software. Moving to the next slide, all bids are advertised with the South Carolina Business Opportunities, SCBO. And during the period of July 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, 0 bids were received from South Carolina certified minority businesses. Moving on to the next slide, during the period of July 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, Sumter School District spent $542,530 with South Carolina certified minority businesses. 98% of that activity is with minority businesses, which are owned by women, and 2% of that activity is with a business owned by an African American male. We are currently doing business with 5 South Carolina certified minority businesses. The projected fiscal year 2022 budgeted expenditures are approximately $129 million. If we spend the same amount in the second half of this fiscal year as we have in the first half, 1% will have been spent with South Carolina certified minority businesses. At this time, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Any questions for Ms. Mills? No questions, Ms. Mills.
All right, that concludes the presentation from the Office of Finance.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Miller. And Dr. Hilton, if I can follow up on your question, there's 65.5 vacancies with 14 pending hires.
Those are teacher vacancies?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and thank you, Dr. Martin Knox, for your report. We are down now to the executive session. Okay, the agenda now calls for the board to enter into executive session. While there is no set time frame for this portion of our meeting, we want to invite you, our in-person guests, as well as our online viewers, to join us again when we return to open session. If you are unable to be with us at that time, please continue to be safe and have a pleasant week. I guess this is where I read this here for.
Well, someone just made some motion.
All right. Okay, trustees, is there a motion to enter into executive session?
Madam Chair, I move that we enter into executive session for discussion of negotiations incident to proposed contractual arrangements.
Is there a second?
Well,
And 5.2 to
the motion is,
the receipt executive session in addition to item 5.2 for receipt of the legal advice related to potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client relationship.
Second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second that the board enters into executive session for negotiation incidents and proposed contractual property, as well as,
did you say, can you repeat that again, Dr. Jackson, discussion of negotiations?
it says here, executive session for negotiation incident proposed contractual arrangement.
Yes, ma'am.
And the 5-point executive session and additional items 5.2 for receipt of legal advice related to a potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client relationship.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is there any discussion? If not, please cast your vote. Okay, the motion passes. And the board is now in executive session. 7.1, any action related to executive session items? Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the proposal presented by the South Carolina School Boards Association for a superintendent search.
Second.
Okay. A motion has been made and second to accept the proposal as presented by the School Board Association for Superintendent Search. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote. The motion passes. Okay, we are now down to 7.2, policy amendment, first reading, ADF district wellness policy. Trustees, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that the board accept first reading of policy ADF, district wellness policy.
Second.
A motion has been made and second to approve first reading of amendments to ADF district wellness policy. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote.
Motion's passed.
The motion passes. We're now down to 8.1. With no objection, the consent agenda will stand approved. Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. I'd like to thank each and everyone for being with us this evening. Please continue to be safe, and with no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:00.